There exists a force which, when destroyed, does not vanish. It merely falls into silence. Friday, October 13th, 1307. In the darkness before dawn, a knock echoed through the headquarters of the Knights Templar across France. These warriors, clad in white robes with crimson crosses upon their chests, the Knights Templar, were arrested one by order of the king's soldiers. They were accused of blasphemy, treason, and heresy. But the real crime? It was never clearly pronounced in any courtroom. Months later, their assets were seized, their secret documents burned, their leaders burned alive in public squares. The crowd stood in silence, the flames roared. History closed their case, but the question remains: could an organization that spanned Europe and the Middle East, wielding enormous wealth and military power, really be wiped out in a single sweep? Or had its true core already vanished into the shadows, awaiting the next age of awakening? The Knights Templar were originally formed to protect pilgrims journeying to the Holy Land, but soon they were granted extraordinary privileges by the Pope himself. Exempt from secular courts, untaxed, answerable only to the papacy. They held land, fleets, armies, even their own banking network. In some cases, they rivaled entire kingdoms. Some say they were guardians of the light. Others claim they protected sacred relics and secret texts. And more still believed they were entrusted with a truth the world was never meant to know. A truth tied to lineage, mystical manuscripts, the Holy Grail, and perhaps the true face of God. History tells us they were officially disbanded in 1312, but have you noticed? The full fate of their treasure has never been traced. Some of their fleets vanished mysteriously and were never seen again. High-ranking knights disappeared, leaving trails along the Mediterranean, in Scotland, Portugal, even the New World. And in the secret societies that followed, their symbols endure: crossed swords, crimson crosses, domes of stars, sacred geometry. A bold hypothesis has emerged. The Templars were never truly destroyed. They simply completed one phase of their mission and passed the rest to a more hidden order. In this episode, we follow the traces. What was the Templars' true origin and their mission outside the Church? How did they build a transcontinental system of finance, military strength, and symbolic power? Was their fall really political, or was it about forbidden knowledge? Do the lost documents and treasures conceal truths that could reshape civilization? How did their philosophy survive the Middle Ages, resurfacing in Freemasonry, the Rosicrucians, and even the modern world order? Perhaps the Knights Templar were never just a medieval military order, but the beginning of an ancient plan still unfolding today. The origins of the Knights Templar are deeply rooted in the philosophical foundations that guided their every move and decision. Long before they became legendary warriors, their mission was defined by a profound spiritual commitment. They believed that their swords were not just weapons, but instruments of divine will. Their faith was their armor, and their purpose was sacred. This unique blend of martial prowess and spiritual devotion set the stage for their remarkable journey. Part 2: Origins and Philosophical Foundations. The Knights were not just defending land, they were guarding something far deeper. In the year 1119, on the ancient stone streets of Jerusalem, 9 knights gathered atop the Temple Mount. There they made a solemn vow, not to a king, nor to a bishop, but to God alone. We swear to defend pilgrims with our swords, to safeguard the Holy Land with our faith. Our master is not the throne nor the church, but the divine. In that moment, a brotherhood was born. They called themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, later known as the Knights Templar. And the place they chose to take their vow, the ruins of Solomon's temple, was no coincidence. At the time, the Holy Land was perilous. Though the Crusaders had seized Jerusalem, pilgrims were still ambushed, robbed and murdered on their sacred journeys. These 9 knights formed a new kind of order, a fusion of monk and warrior, sworn to protect the pilgrimage routes from Europe to the East. But soon their role would evolve into something far more powerful. Pope Innocent II issued a decree granting them authority above bishops. They were exempt from taxes, free to travel across borders, and answered only to the Pope. Nobles and monarchs donated vast lands, fortresses, and wealth to their cause. They pioneered a revolutionary financial system using temple receipts to replace currency and enable cross-border funds transfer. In just a few decades, the Templars transformed from borderland guardians into a pan-Eurasian force, an empire of faith, finance, and force. They were soldiers, bankers, architects, mystics, guardians of relics, and weavers of symbols. Why did they choose the Temple of Solomon as their sacred symbol? After all, the temple had long been destroyed, only rubble remained. But in Judeo-Christian tradition, Solomon's temple is believed to be the first earthly projection of divine geometric order. Its architecture, said to be dictated by God, was embedded with cosmic proportions, altar placements, energy flows, and numerical laws. By adopting it, the Templars seem to declare, "Our mission is not to build a kingdom for men, but to rebuild divine order for God." Though they called themselves poor knights, they swiftly acquired immense resources. Rumors swirled that beneath the Temple Mount they excavated for years and uncovered forbidden relics, fragments of the Ark of the Covenant, scrolls bearing the seal of Solomon, the Holy Grail, or even hidden records revealing the true story of Jesus. These findings were never made public, but subtle clues began to emerge. They built round churches, windowless, towerless domes, unlike anything in Catholic tradition. Their symbols featured 2 knights on 1 horse, crossed swords, 8-pointed stars, black and white chessboards, and rays of sacred light. Their internal training included Latin ciphers, geometry, ancient astronomy, and the study of pagan symbolism. This wasn't merely a military order. They were guarding a system of knowledge, one that the church of the time would never dare endorse. Many believed the Knights Templar were mere instruments of the church, but in truth their relationship was more of a mutual pact. The church needed them to project the might of divine authority. The Templars needed papal protection to operate outside secular law, and at the core of their agreement was a silent understanding: do not interfere in each other's true doctrines. Until one day, the balance shifted, the Templars became too powerful, and the truths they guarded became too dangerous. The pact collapsed. In the next chapter, we will explore the architectural intelligence behind their rise. How did the Knights Templar use symbolism as a weapon to shape spiritual order? Were their military grids, sacred buildings, and financial systems all expressions of divine geometry? And what was the true spark that led to their annihilation? Because sometimes it is not the organization that must be destroyed, but the access to truth that it holds. Part 3: Symbolic Structure and the Hidden Codes of Power. When power cannot be openly expressed, it hides within architecture, symbols, and ritual. In the theocratic world of the Middle Ages, to spread knowledge that contradicted church dogma was an act of rebellion, often punishable by death. The Knights Templar understood this all too well, so they hid the truth inside structures. Their authority did not rely on kings, nor on the papal throne. It was rooted in a brilliantly disguised yet deeply effective system of symbolic order. You can burn a scroll, but you cannot destroy a symbol carved in stone. One of the greatest legacies the Templars left behind was their hundreds of round churches, radically different from the Latin cross layouts of traditional cathedrals. They built with octagons, circles, golden spirals, and equilateral crossings. Their structures were aligned to celestial bodies, their internal geometry measured with sacred precision, evoking a sense of cosmic order. In Tomar, Portugal, the central pillar of the Templar Rotunda is carved with Solomon's hidden seal. Above, a star-shaped skylight casts a beam of light that, at the precise moment of the summer solstice, strikes directly atop the altar. This was no accident. This was their doctrine of light. Their buildings were not just sanctuaries, they were revelations in stone. Section Finance and Military Design, duration 4 minutes plus 10 seconds. The Templars invented the temple letter of credit. A pilgrim could deposit gold in London and withdraw silver in Jerusalem, using nothing but a coded, sigil-stamped slip of parchment. It was the world's first transnational clearing system. But its real power lay in something greater. The engineering of trust. Through symbols, oaths, and sacred authority, the Templars created a new kind of credit. They needed no royal mint, no imperial treasury. Their letters circulated across kingdoms, forming a supranational financial network. This wasn't just the prototype of banking, it was a model of order beyond feudal law. A financial spell, woven through faith and symbol. Think the Templars were only soldiers? Think again. Their fortresses, battlefield formations, and command maps were embedded with sacred geometry. Many citadels were built in radiating star patterns. Inner chambers housed rooms of contemplation for daily meditation and prayer. Battle drills followed crossed path alignments, training knights into a state of dual awareness, inner and outer. Their banner, the Beau Sillon, bore stark black and white halves, representing matter and spirit, war and stillness. It was not merely a flag, it was a declaration of their spiritual formation. Non nobis domini, non nobis, sed nomini tua da gloriam. Not to us, O Lord, not to us, but to your name, be the glory. They were not just fighting men, they were extensions of spiritual order in motion. The Knights Templar knew something profound. Words can be distorted, but symbols endure. They built an entire symbolic lexicon of images, colors, numbers, and geometry to express teachings that could not be spoken aloud. Two knights on one horse, unity, balance, and the harmony of spirit and flesh. Crossed swords, a crossroad, not just war, a symbol of choice. Black and white chessboard, duality, the eternal tension of opposites. Eight-pointed star, a portal between realms, 8 symbolizing rebirth and renewal. The stonemason's hammer, a tool of refinement, awakening, and sacred craftsmanship. This system wasn't designed to convert the masses. It was meant to awaken those who could see, and together these codes formed something never before seen in the medieval world, a spiritual operating system, a structure that led men to believe in order, pledge allegiance to symbols, take responsibility for maintaining sacred truth, and become, through repetition and ritual, a living unit of divine geometry. In the next part, we will descend even deeper. Why were the Knights Templar truly destroyed? And were the lost scrolls and vanished treasures ever really about gold? Or were they keys to something far more dangerous, access to truth itself? Core Analysis 2. What was burned was not a secret, but the doorway. Part 4. Core Analysis 2. What was burned was not a secret, but the doorway. Every book burning in history never truly destroyed paper, it destroyed keys. In 1312, under immense political pressure and rising paranoia, Pope Clement V officially declared, "The order of the Knights Templar shall be dissolved." To this day, historians call it one of the most suspicious compromises in papal history. But if you look beyond the surface, you'll realize it wasn't their wealth that triggered the purge, it was their uncontainable knowledge. King Philip IV of France accused them of heresy, blasphemy, idol worship, and venerating a mysterious figure named Baphomet. Yet no conclusive evidence has ever surfaced proving they conducted such rituals. Instead, mounting evidence suggests the Templars may have preserved manuscripts detailing the true life of Jesus, perhaps divergent from the canonical Gospels, ancient scrolls from the time of Solomon's Temple revealing the architecture of sacred language, fragments of Mediterranean mystery school philosophy blending Hermetic, Egyptian, and esoteric thought, illustrated shards of ancient science including divine flame technologies and seismic mapping layers. If decrypted, these materials could have unraveled the Church's singular narrative of truth. To those in power, this knowledge wasn't just dangerous, it was a threat to the symbolic foundation of authority itself. So they had to be erased, not just physically, but symbolically. On March 18th, 1314, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, Jacques de Molay, was burned slowly at the stake by the Seine River in Paris. Eyewitnesses say he remained calm and resolute, uttering a chilling prophecy through the flames. Pope Clement, King Philip, "Within a year you shall both stand before God's judgment with me." By the year's end, Clement was dead from a sudden illness, and Philip was killed during a mysterious hunting accident in the forest. From that day forward, the curse of the temple became a whispered warning among Europe's elite. But the most shocking detail wasn't the prophecy. It was what happened after de Molay's death. A fleet of ships said to carry Templar manuscripts and scrolls vanished from the western coast of France. Some say they sailed north to Scotland, others claim they passed through icy oceans to undiscovered lands, and still others believe they sailed beyond time itself. Treasure hunters still seek the Templar hoard, gold, grails, forbidden weapons. But the deeper you go into history, the more one thing becomes clear. The treasure may never have been metal, it may have been a map of consciousness, a system of spiritual architecture designed to restructure inner awareness and pierce the illusion of worldly order. That would explain why their documents are encoded in symbols and geometry, not simple language. Why later groups like the Freemasons and Rosicrucians claim to have inherited Templar wisdom. Why certain architectural blueprints like Washington D.C. or the Louvre Pyramid still echo their sacred geometry. Perhaps the final mission of the Templars wasn't to guard something, but to preserve a path to higher understanding, a path that cannot be spoken, only symbolically activated. In Rosslyn Chapel, Scotland, one can still find overlapping symbols from the Templars and Freemasons. 8-petal roses, twin riders, unfinished stone columns walls aligned to constellations. In Portugal, the Order of Christ became the Templars' legal successor, quietly guiding secret voyages during the Age of Discovery. It's said their maps' golden ratio sea routes and solar alignment techniques stem directly from Templar legacies. Even today, certain secret societies, financial dynasties, and consciousness research groups still quietly uphold the Templar oath structure in modified form. All of this suggests their mission was never completed. It simply changed form, a new face in a new age, speaking in new symbols. In medieval lore, the Grail is often portrayed as a sacred chalice, a divine vessel said to hold the blood of Christ. But in esoteric traditions, the Grail is not something you hold, it's something you become. It is the container of divine essence, hidden within each soul. A cipher for pure consciousness, uncorrupted by dogma or fear. A bridge between the visible and invisible worlds. The Templars, if they guarded the Grail, may have never meant to protect an object, but to protect the path leading inward. Many modern seekers believe that the Grail symbol represents the inner gate, a spiritual technology encoded in myths, symbols, architecture, and ritual, not a doorway to heaven above, but a passage to divine awareness within. This would explain why the Templars' knowledge was so threatening. It bypassed the ecclesiastical structure. It threatened the monopoly on salvation. It pointed to a direct, individual path to the sacred. Such knowledge had to be buried, not because it was evil, but because it made intermediaries obsolete. Throughout Europe and beyond, signs of this inner Grail tradition remain. Cathedrals built with sacred ratios aligned to solstices, symbols in stained glass windows, in floor mosaics, in bell towers, manuscripts encoded with mathematical harmonies and cosmic diagrams. In places like Chartres Cathedral, Rosslyn Chapel and Thomas, the Grail is not shown, but suggested, not named, but felt. It's the light pattern at dawn, the stone path no longer walked, the silence between columns waiting for the one who can see. What if the true mission of the Knights Templar was never to win a war, but to preserve a seed of symbolic intelligence, waiting across time for a consciousness capable of decoding it? The Grail is not hidden. It is simply unread until the mind is ready. That's why the Templar tradition lives on not in form but in resonance, in the myths that still haunt us, in the dreams that stir ancient memory, in the sudden recognition of meaning when we gaze upon a symbol we've never seen, yet somehow know. This is not fantasy, it is the forgotten mirror of human potential. The Templars may have vanished from history's stage, but their mission, their language, their symbols, and perhaps even their soul, still whisper through stone, through silence, through the very geometry of the world. And perhaps their final message to us was never written in words. Only this: the path to the sacred does not lie outside of you. The temple is within. Part 6, the echo in modern reality. The silent hand still holds the sword. When an order dies, its symbols begin to live. The Knights Templar may have been declared defunct in official history, but their symbolic code, like a dormant seed, quietly took root, sprouting through the soil of later civilizations. So now we must ask, did they truly perish, or did they never intend for the organization to survive, but rather for the will to replicate? From knights to architects. By the 16th century, new brotherhoods began to appear across Europe. They held no armies, yet commanded something deeper, subtle power. Freemasonry. Using stonemasonry as metaphor, it emphasized inner refinement, hierarchical ascent, and symbolic language. Rosicrucianism fused alchemy, hermetic wisdom, astrology, and cosmic order into a unified mystical philosophy. The Knights of Malta inherited portions of Templar structure and became one of the most rich orders under Vatican protection. All of these groups claimed they were not newly formed, but rather extensions of an ancient vow. Their rituals, architecture, grades of initiation, and symbol systems overlapped profoundly with Templar legacy, especially Freemasonry, which not only adopted the symbolism of Solomon's Temple, but openly declared, "We do not imitate the Knights Templar. We are a fractal continuation of their consciousness." The legacy of the Templars was not just organizational, it became spatial. A code embedded into the very design of cities and nations. For example, the Great Seal of the United States bears a floating pyramid topped by the all-seeing eye, a symbol of power unfulfilled, forever suspended in the light of revelation. The urban layout of Washington D.C. forms an octagram with radial paths connecting monuments and Capitol Hill, as though modeling a modern sacred altar. The floor plan of Jerusalem's Temple Mount is mirrored in the Louvre Pyramid and the facade of the British Parliament. Coincidence, or proof of the Templars' enduring belief? If you can shape the space in which people live, you can silently shape their perception of reality. Napoleon Bonaparte called himself a secular executor of Templar ideals. During his conquest of the Holy Land, he ordered Solomon's ruins to be protected. British royal family members have had historic ties to Freemasonry and Rosicrucian orders, with Templar imagery still present in heraldry. The early architecture of the Federal Reserve and international banking systems mirrors the Templars' trust-based networks. In psychology, thinkers like Carl Jung drew from Templar symbolism in exploring archetypes, the sacred masculine, and the collective unconscious. But the deepest imprint lies not in monarchs or bankers, it lies within civilization itself. The Templars carved a permanent archetype into the Western psyche, the warrior monk, a being who merges discipline and devotion, body and spirit, sword and symbol. Have you ever noticed corporate logos echoing twin swords or red crosses? Public monuments ending in octagonal star shapes, political speeches invoking light glory or sacred covenants. These are not retro aesthetics, they are genetic continuities. The Templars were not reborn, they simply continued, moving like a silent current through the maze of history. They did not seek to create a new empire, they sought to guard the gate that leads to truth. As we come to the end of our journey, let us reflect on the enduring legacy of the Knights Templar. Their influence, etched into the fabric of history, continues to shape our world in subtle yet profound ways. From the corridors of power to the depths of our collective psyche, the Templars' spirit remains a guiding force. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. Until next time, may the quest for truth and knowledge light your path. Part 7. Closing Reflections. Will you step through the door that was never closed? Not all knights sought the Grail. Some guarded the doorway to human awakening. You've now heard their story. A mysterious journey spanning 3 centuries and 3 continents. A brotherhood bound by oath, attempting to protect a truth that could never be spoken. Caught between faith, war, and power. Did they fail? Or did they simply withdraw from the visible world, leaving their final mission to those who could read the language of symbols? The Temple of Solomon may be gone, but its blueprint was carved into architecture, maps, and the deep layers of consciousness. As their belief goes, God's order is not in the heavens. It lives in those who are willing to build it within. This was never about religion. It was about the call of symbols, and the Templars were the gatekeepers of that call. They were burned, but not consumed. Branded as heretics, yet left behind a structure that still shapes the roots of modern civilization. Their trace is not in textbooks, it's in the pyramids you see daily, in credit systems, identity rituals, spiritual ideals, and our enduring longing for the sacred. The final mission of the Knights Templar was perhaps never about themselves. It was about awakening you and the memory buried within your civilization. Have you ever felt, in a quiet moment, that some structures in this world are not naturally occurring, that certain patterns, symbols, or systems seem to wait for you to recognize them? Perhaps in a dream, a ceremony, a meditation, or even in the pages of a forgotten book, you remembered something. That may not have been imagination, it may have been an echo, from a vow that passed through flame, sword, silence, and exile, through time itself to reach you. Today you need not carry a sword nor wear armor. Your enemy is not a man, but an illusion. Your mission is not to defend a holy land, but to guard the gate of truth. Are you willing to become a builder of consciousness? Will you take up the symbolic keys to unlock the lost blueprint of civilization? Will you stop waiting for the Grail and instead become it? Then perhaps you are the generation they waited for, not to continue an order, but to awaken the sacred. Final call to action, a door awaits. If this story stirred something in you, like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever noticed Templar symbols appearing subtly in daily life? Do you believe the Knights guarded not relics, but another kind of knowledge? If you could choose a symbol to represent your mission in this life, what would it be? We are not just telling history. We are attempting to reactivate a call that was once sealed in silence. Next episode preview coming soon. We will trace the true origins of the Illuminati. Is it really a shadow group controlling the world, or another alliance of awakening misunderstood for centuries? The symbols are still speaking. Will you still listen?